We've got a small group of people together here to just discuss the rules for the promo die that's coming with Ashes of Alushrai. So everyone just say hi so that they know that I'm not really here alone.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, just say hi.
Hey everyone,
Yeah, see, there are other
Hi
voices.
there.
there's more of us.
All right. All right, well, if I click to my lovely little slide here, there were just a couple talking points that I wanted to do. Chuck and Cliff are here. We can speak for SFR, and then we've got Travis and Andrew to so that we're just not here alone. Get some first responses from them. So one of the things that I just wanted to talk about is the fact that these things, plans like this, take a long time. It was almost 2 years ago that I first approached the publisher and author of Ashes to start talking to them about resurrecting our literary book. And then after that, we spent almost a year talking and deciding about what this promo die was going to be with it. That's actually the only reason we have the promo die is because we had started the order well before COVID quarantine had started. So unlike the Kickstarter issues that we're now facing, where we can't get some of those promo dice, luckily these were already in progress and we had them. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything towards that point or just hurry up and get to the rules.
Just 2 years
Anyone?
to have all this in the planning and the works and keep it a secret is amazing.
Yes. I know. And for me, those who know me, I hate to keep secrets like this. But, it's just the idea that, we don't want to, overpromise anything because sometimes we have plans that long out and sometimes they fall through. And I know as a company, I hate to, get the community excited about something and then have it disappear. So until things start getting close and still they start becoming real, I hesitate to even talk about them. But there are so many other things like this that are in the pipe and working their way towards completion. The next couple years are going to be really exciting. So let's see. I want to, just say thank you, everyone, for being patient. That was just a throwaway bullet. But here's one. This is one that, Chuck, I know that you love to talk about this. I just wanted to take a little aside here. People asked us for years, to reprint a Dice Commander's manual. And, we've always explained why, but would you like to go ahead and share any thoughts there?
So, what no one is going to really know, except for the fact that I'm going to tell you, is that 4.01 actually has gone through 4 revisions already. Um, so, it's kind of hard to want to take our rules and commit them to paper and say, well, okay, now they can't ever change. Well, then we can't add anything new. Those of you who are astute, and after you hear this talk, you will see some of the things we added to 4.0 rules to support this. Well, some of those had to change slightly as we went. So, yeah, a lot of revision.
Right. Yes. And that was, I'll just echo those thoughts that, for myself, we always, the moment you print it, it is almost out of date. Or, like you said, the rules have to become static and it becomes very hard to release anything new. And so, we had went ahead and actually did print the rulebook now as part of the Kickstarter simply because so many people had asked. And we found, a relatively cheap way to do it. But I think it's fair to say that, we're not, that's not a profit generating product for us. Partly because we don't, I don't like buying $50 rule books for other games that I play. And we know that, like today, as soon as we reveal these new rules, now there's going to be rules for a die that aren't going to be in that printed form. Travis or Andrew, any, do you agree with that approach? Disagree?
It sounds fine to me. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it makes sense to me too. I definitely like having a printed rule book, whether I print it or the one I'm getting from the Kickstarter. But I do like the idea of a living rules that's constantly updated, constantly evolving, like we have, and it does make it hard to release a printed product.
Yeah. Having the printed rulebook is definitely a great help, and I usually just tolerate updates, constant updates by FAQs, like small little sheets that I can just print out and kind of stick in the back of a printed hardcover, or maybe sticky it to the said page that got edited.
Right, yeah. And that's actually, we've got some plans on that. Within the next couple days, we've got a rule sheet that is formatted very similarly to the book, that could be stuck in, near the back, near the races. So that is the idea that we were going for. So I'm glad to hear that you like that. All right, so my next little bullet point here on the slide for those following along is, what is the die already? All right, so, as some of you, have guessed, well, actually I have one or more two teasers here. So before we actually get to the rules, the start of them, obviously it appears to be a metallic dragonkin. For those who saw the picture on Facebook, I'll go ahead and tell you it's not a dragonkin, but that it is actually a unit of a fully new race. And as a unit, it can be part of an initial army build. It does not start in the summoning pool, but just like you would take a Dragon Slayer, you build your army with it and start. Do you like the idea? I'm going to make you talk, because otherwise I'm just lecturing to you.
It sounds pretty exciting.
Okay.
A dragonkin that I don't have to summon in.
Well, but it's not a dragonkin. So
It's not, but tell me what it is.
So we'll go and tell you what it is. Nice segue. All right, this is now officially, its name is the Bronze Draco-Champion. And so what is a Draco-Champion? If I click my little button here, the name of this race is actually Dracolem. So for those who read the little teaser from the novel Ashes of Alusharai, obviously the characters in that world still believe that they are, just a unique, special kind of dragonkin. That's how they treat them. I know a little bit more of that backstory, so we're going to make you educated readers. We've seen, years ago there was a joke about the gnomes as a race. Well, the gnomes have been sprinkled throughout all the different literature that we've got coming out in the books this year. And so this is, another instance of them, that they are so good at metallurgy and working and creating items. These are basically clockwork devices that are mistaked as living creatures. And they are, in fact, sentient, which is why you are allowed to play with them. So is that boring? Ho-hum? Does anyone expect that?
That story is really intriguing to me. I'm looking for. I just finished the latest book today, just a couple hours ago. I'm looking forward to reading more about this in the next book and learning about this Dracolem race.
Yeah, for me, it's very exciting because there's no really race that allows you to build dragons, just pure dragons, because you have to summon dragonkin in. My big question would be, and this probably is going to be discussed further down the line as we get into rules, whether or not, is this Draco-Champion, is this one of the special big dice tiers outside of the normal 1, 2 point, 3 point, those kinds of questions?
Okay. Well, and so at that, I can go ahead and answer there. And anyone, Chuck, whenever you want to jump in, just speak over me. I have a fear of silence, so I tend to speak quickly to questions. But yes, so similar to the Eldarim race, where they don't have 10-sided monsters as part of their race with the acolytes, they have a 4-point champion unit, I can go ahead and tell you that, that's kind of the approach that this is. So similar to how the Dragonkin champions are 4-point units of the Dragonkin race, this is a 4-point unit of the Dracolem race.
And there will be a whole set of them at some point.
Yes, there are. One of the things that's in the pipe is something like that. A brand new race requires a lot of play testing, and so we do have some concepts for that. And once we have tested everything, we will get to that. I just realized my Windows bar is at the bottom. Let's see if I can make that go away. Hey. All right. The next little point of rules here, something that makes this unique different. They are a constructed race, made by the gnomes who have been currently missing from ESSA for quite a while. So while the Dracolem, they have learned, how to repair themselves, they cannot create new life. They can't make a new Dracolem out of nothing. And so we've introducing a new game term here, repair, simply as an easy way to say that when you repair a unit, it's taken out of the DUA and typically put back into play at an army. And so this is, you can't promote them, you can't recruit them, you cannot return them from the DUA at a new one. They can only be repaired. And you'll see a little bit more what that means once we get down to the spells, where that new game term is used. Oh, you got the COVID? You coughed.
Nah.
Sorry, dad joke.
Yeah.
Now we're going to have to quarantine this chat.
14 days we're going to have to sit on here. All right. So let's get to racial abilities. The first one, you might guess. Dracolems, they have magic skins that gives them automatic save results equal to their health. So pretty much the exact same racial ability that the Dragonkin have, as the gnomes, saw the Dragonkin and replicated them in a metallic format. They replicated that. And so, similar to the Dragonkin, the wonderful die resolution page, step 9, this is considered an additive type save. So it comes in fairly late in the die resolution. So I won't ask you to respond to that because it's fairly well expected. Now, this next one you can blame on Cliff. Triphalangeal, which is a fancy medical term that means 3 finger bones. Basically, Dracolems don't have thumbs. So they cannot carry items, which items, for those of you who haven't seen or noticed in the new 4.01 rules, what previously was called items are now called equipment. So specifically the 4-sided isosceles triangle dice is equipment, and then items is the game term to collectively refer to the equipment, the artifacts, medallions, and the relics.
This seems like a pretty interesting drawback to the Draculum not being able to carry items. I don't know if I'm more excited by that or by learning what triphalangeal means. I've never heard that word before.
Well, you'll have to go out, Google your new word. That can be your word for the day. That is actually a real word. Refers to both thumbs and toes, you'll find out. All right. And I clicked the wrong button there. All right. And now, probably one of the more interesting, this is a bronze Dracoleum, so his racial ability there, and I'll just read it for anyone who maybe isn't watching the stream. During a magic action, bronze Dracolems may count their magic results as a color that matches any other unit in the marching army, or ivory if there's Amazons in the army. These magic results may be used to cast basic spells and racial spells of races that have units of the army. So for those who are familiar with the bronze medallion, this is fairly similar to its ability. one note that I would make here, the reference to Amazons and Ivory. A racial ability cannot be used as part of another racial ability. So this is not an instance where a bronze Dracolem can say, oh, well, I count as Ivory, therefore I get what's in the terrain. That remains something unique to the Amazons. This specific call out for being Ivory is because the Amazon racial spells are cast with quote-unquote Ivory magic. And so if an Amazon was in the army with this bronze Dracolem, it would allow it to count its magic results as if they were Ivory for that purpose.
So the main difference between this and the bronze medallion doesn't have to have any unit, but the Dracolem has to have a matching unit in order to get that color and that racial stuff.
Yes, a very good distinction. Yes, this is, I mean, obviously you could think about, well, hey, what if I ordered 15 copies of the book? And I know that, our publisher is saying, yay, I wish you would. And if you did, you would get 15 Dracolems, 15 of these bronze Draco-Champions. You could make an army of just them. But this is, you wouldn't get the benefit of this racial ability. They can be played by themselves, but they also work really well in conjunction with other races. I think that's when they really shine, and you'll see that as we go to some of the other abilities.
I would love to see an army of several bronze Dracolem with a bunch of 1-2 health units of different races to open up their access to spell lists. That'd be an interesting army to try out.
Now, the one question I have, because we've only talked about bronze Dracolem, what are the I think you probably know the direction that I'm going with this. What are the chances that we're going to see a silver or a gold, and maybe take a look at the medallions be kind of like how you built the bronze medallion being built into this, kind of a little bit. See it with the other.
Funny you should ask.
Well, yeah, funny you should ask, because if I click the very next screen, hey, we have a picture here of a silver Dracolem. It just happens to be the silver Draco-Champion. Now, this die is not currently available yet, but I did go ahead and get a prototype run of what it would look like. You might be able to guess that after this there might be a gold and 3 dice. That sounds a lot like a trilogy to me. But we do have a racial ability for the silver Dracolem. So this one, I'll go ahead and read it just because I love to. Immediately before your first march, after the dragon's attacks have been resolved, immediately before, yes, select an army that has at least 1 silver Dracolem. You may return a single item from your BUA, your buried unit area, to that chosen army. The item that can be returned depends on how many health worth of units you have. So if you have at least 1 silver Dracolem, you may return a small equipment. If you have 2 or more, you can return medium or a small. And if you have so on, and then there's a table of what that looks like. So for these, since the Draco-Champions are 4 health units, they would allow you to return an artifact, or a large equipment, or a medium equipment, or a small equipment. But you would have to have, at least 2 of them currently to get up to 8 health to be able to have them return a relic from the buried area. So there are some parallels here to, the silver medallion, as it's also able to unbury, it has to do with items. And so this ability also has to do with items.
And none of this is accidental, by the way. We have decided that these alloys have affinities for having certain power.
So you guys actually planned it out
Yes.
and made it work the way as planned.
Oh, yes, isn't that lovely? All right.
And this is really interesting too. Like, this is such a powerful ability to bring back equipment that's been buried But once again, Dracolem cannot carry items, so you have to have a multiracial army to have something to carry the item that you're bringing back.
Yes, and this is great, for anyone who's played against me, with items at DreamCon during the Battle Fest. I love to min-max my armies. It's probably why I lose so much, but I love to max out the number of items that I'm carrying. And, that always hurts me because the moment I take a single point of damage, I start losing items. Well, now I might actually have the chance to get some of those back. So I can see some interesting Battlefest armies coming in the next year or two. All right, well, let's go ahead and move on. Obviously, yes, the next one would be gold. A big surprise. And this is a prototype shot that I have of a gold Draco-Champion. And so their ability, I actually decided to reveal these bullet points here one at a time. It takes a little bit to read it, but once you get used to it, it all makes sense. So the timing for the gold Dracolem, immediately before the first march, after dragon attacks have been resolved, you may do one of three possible things. The first one is you may send a dragonkin unit from one of your armies that's also that's in the same army as this gold Dracolem to your summoning pool. So basically you unsummon them, and that allows you to return a non-Dracolem unit with the same health from the DUA to that army. So, let's stop and talk about that one for a little bit. The concept here is that the gold Dracolem, they're basically the medics that, the gnomes made them to be able to heal, which is sort of the gold alloy theme is healing. So essentially this gold Dracolem can take a living dragonkin, it unsummons it or kills it, essentially, to use its body parts to repair a dead unit and bring it back into your army.
I kind of prefer to think of it as that it takes the dragonkin's life force, puts it back into another unit.
That is much less gruesome. So
that's kind of the way I was thinking of it too. Yeah, you also, it's like you spend that magic to summon the dragonkin units, bring them into your army, and it's almost like saving that magic for the future to replace that unit with a unit that's died.
There you go.
Well, and you can do this. Obviously, you can do this during when all your armies can't get at magic. If they're all missile or melee, this is a good way to be able to bring units back without having to go to reserves with magic or something.
This is also a fun thing to pair up with Elderum units with their ability to summon Dragonkin at the start of a turn before they march.
That was definitely a theme in our playtesting.
Yes. All right. Well, so we'll go to the second bullet point here. The second of the things you may choose to do. Once per turn, you choose one of these. So in this case, maybe you don't have a living dragonkin in your army. You haven't thought ahead or been able to prepare, but you want to be able to bring something back. So it's the same basic effect, but instead of unsummoning a summoned dragonkin, you take one from the summoning pool and bury it. And then you get the same benefit at the same health from DUA to the army that contains this unit.
So you're saying I can make an army similar to a Monster Bash army that's all monsters and Gold Dracolem champions, and I could have a summoning pool full of 4-point Dragonkin champions, and anytime a monster dies, it's like having a free revival for that monster for 3 uses.
It is, yes. The 3 uses being the 3 Dragonkin champions that would be in your summoning pool. So yeah, it's definitely a limited resource, but it's in the short term, it's a very powerful resource to quickly get those units back.
Nice.
All right, well, we will move on. The third of the three things you may choose, it's similar along the same theme, but this one actually is a little bit more offensive that can target an opponent's Dragonkin at the same terrain as this gold Dracolem unit. But in this case, since you're attacking your opponent, of course, you want to give them a chance to save. You don't want to just make it an automatic kill. So they get to roll their target Dragonkin, and if it does not roll its ID, then it is returned to its summoning pool, and you get the same ability. If it happens to roll its ID, obviously 1 in 6 chance, then it would survive, and your gold Dracolem ability just fizzles this turn. All right, so we will go ahead and move on. The next page I've got here, obviously this current dice, the Draco-Champion, has the same faces as the Dragonkin units. That's one of the reasons why the characters in the world mistake it for being a Dragonkin. So we know that it does have a belly. The belly has the same ability as you would expect, where it loses the automatic save results. And again, this is a good time to mention that those save results are for armies, not for units. This die does have a fly on it, so fly has its same ability, generate X maneuvers or X saves. In this case, X equals 4, because it's a 4-point unit. It does have a smite, same language as smite that we're all familiar with. And it does have the same breath as a Dragonkin champion would have, that it targets 4 health worth of units in the defending army. So at this point, nothing surprising, but of course we know the last face on this die is the SFR company logo. And this is where we get a new, what I hope is an exciting ability, the SFR logo. So we've actually named this ability Gate. It's sort of like, think of it as a dimensional gate. During any non-maneuver roll, it may move up to 4 health worth of other Dracolems of a matching alloy. And alloy is one of those new 4.0 terms for gold, bronze, or silver. So it moves them from its army to any terrain or the reserves. But the unit which opened the gate may not move. It must remain at that terrain. So any thoughts on that new ability? Take a moment to think about it.
Reminds me a lot of the path-like SAIs, like Fairy and such, that would normally let you move with a number of units somewhere else.
It
But
reminds
not-
me a lot of what is it? Unicorn. Unicorn.
Unicorn Teleport.
Yes. Yep. It's
Griffin's
definitely along that theme. The same types of armies that you'd build a fairy army or a teleport army for. You could use for this army. The only difference is that it has to stay. This one stays behind to hold the gate open. There are some thematic reasons for that, which I think that they will be revealed in future novels.
Are they going to be revealed in this next book we're getting next month?
No. So next month, July 1st, is the Ashes of Elushra. That is the first of what is called the Relic Trilogy. But in the second and third, I don't know which one, but I think it'll be coming then if I can't keep the secret that long.
So one thing to note with this ability is that unlike Fairy, which there are 2 fairies on a Griffin,
I can't see.
so you have a 1 in 5 chance of a fairy coming up on a Griffin. But this, there's only a 1 in 6 chance. So it's actually, in some ways, it's a little less powerful than Fairy or Teleport.
Especially with the fact that he can't move itself. Even if you had a unit roll Fairy or Teleport, they can't move the unit using Gate.
Or any other means.
Right.
It can't be in the same turn. It can't be path. It can't be ferried. Nothing. It has to stay put. Now we haven't really talked about that, and we may have to do an FAQ on that. But if you do move it for some reason, the gate may collapse, and whatever you sent away may come back.
Can you clarify that? So you said the entire turn, not just this roll?
During this roll, yeah. Well, I mean, okay, yeah. Sorry, I got it carried away. It would be just this roll. So say you're making a melee attack, and this comes up, and you decide you want to move 4 health to another terrain. If another unit came up with fairy, you could not move this unit. If you did, the gate would collapse, and the gated units would have to come back.
Okay, and that's a good point you also brought up that I hadn't thought of, is if I'm making a magic roll and I gate a unit, in that magic roll I can't path this Dracolem unit because he used gate. He has to hold the gate open. I didn't think of that one.
Right. So the text on this might get a little bit more wordy to emphasize that point that it can't be moved and that it fails if you do move. But this is the gist of the idea.
Okay. So I just noticed someone handed me, Travis, I see that you've been keeping track of the comments on the Facebook, but just one or two of the comments there that I've just now seen that I wanted to respond to. So, Tom, you had asked about, the rest of the dice that will be in this race. They will definitely not just be recolors. As we are designing that dice, they are unique dice in and to themselves. And William, it looks like you had asked about the color, or someone had asked about the color of the die.
About the plastic.
The plastic color. So I don't have any. I'm actually away from home right now, so I don't have any of the old gold Draco-Champions with me. It is a different color of gold, which will be nice to help keep the metallic gold different than the elemental yellow. But it's also partly because, as we've seen with other dice plastics, that the colors shift over time, and because what they use to color the plastic in the past is considered not safe, and so they can't produce it anymore. So we will get 2 of these dice next to each other probably this weekend, and we'll get someone to post a picture, if not sooner, of what the color variation is on these dice compared to the gold that you're used to. All right, so I'm not going to be able to keep up with comments and move through all these. So, we will go through and definitely answer all the questions later. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to spells. The spells for this, because as a whole new race, unlike the Dragonkin, as a playable race, they will have access to missile type units in the future. They will have access to cast spells. So just a concept here is that because this race is made up of alloys rather than elements, whenever they roll, they will generate alloy magical results. And thus they have their own spell lists of alloy magics as opposed to elemental magics. So currently, these Dracolems will be the only ones, they're the only spells that they can cast outside of the bronze racial ability. And so also similarly to how there are some spells that can be cast in any element, there are going to be some spells that can be used to cast by any alloy. But when you cast that spell, you must be able to pay all of its results from the same color. And just as a reminder, the elements are what we're traditionally used to: fire, water, air, earth, death, while the alloys are bronze, silver, and gold. So let's talk about these spells a little bit. And I'll go ahead and reveal these, a few at a time. So the first spell, Scrap 4 Parts. This is any color, any alloy spell. It is a cost of 2, and it is castable via reserves. And so in the book, the word one is bolded and underlined here. And so similar to how is in the rulebook, that indicates that if you wanted to cast the spell twice, essentially if you cast 4 points of magic, then it increases that 1 to 2. That is the increasing part of the spell. So target 1 health worth of your Dracolem units that are in your dead unit area. You bury that target, that's the scrap part, and then you get to repair 1 health worth of units to the casting army. So again, Dracolems cannot just simply be brought back to life. There always has to be, some other cost that they are sacrificing one of their units to be able to repair and return a different unit to life. And that might seem kind of harsh, but this is the counter to them having the autosaves. A unit like this is going to save very well. So it may be hard to get them to take damage, but once they get that damage, it is permanent. Any thoughts there, or do you want to move on to the next spell?
I'm thinking about it, but let's see the next spell.
All right. All right, so the next spell, Reconfigure. So similar spell, which has to do with their type of resurrection. In this case, you target a health unit that's in the army, so it's a living unit. That unit dies, goes to the DUA, and then you can repair a different unit from the DUA to the casting army. So this one, if you're familiar with the old tree folk ability Replanting, it's kind of similar to that. Initially, as this reads, it is 1 health for 1 health. But where this gets really interesting is, say that you went ahead and cast the spell 3 times. So if you went ahead and spent 9 points of magic on Reconfigure, it would read to target 3 health worth of units. Could be 1 unit, could be 1 die, could be 3 of the smaller die in the future. They would die, and then you would be able to repair 3 health worth of Dracolem units, which could be 1 die, could be multiple die.
That's really neat. So I could reconfigure my army composition. I want to bring back my missile units. I can kill off my melee or magic units to bring back missile. If I want to switch back to melee, kill off my missile units to bring back melee. That's interesting.
Yes. Now, obviously, there is a cost here because it is a magic spell.
Right.
But it does allow you that, should, some, stinky blue mage out there lightning strike one of your units, they get unlucky enough to die, and maybe that was the only melee unit you had. This is at least a way to get that back.
And so to cast scrap for parts or reconfigure, I need all points to be of the same alloy, right?
Yes. So in this case, you could
Can I target any... Can I use gold alloy magic to reconfigure a silver Dracolem?
Yes.
Sweet.
Sweet. All right. Next spell. Reinforce. So this one, also castable from reserves, also costs 3. This is target 1 of your units at a terrain or reserve and move it to the casting army. So Reinforce, it's similar to, whereas the Gate ability is a way for a Dracolem to send a unit away, Reinforce is almost the opposite. They can summon any unit to immediately come to their army to assist them.
That's really cool. That's like another variant to Path and the Amazon Rally spell. But yeah, and like you said, the opposite of Gate, pulling units to your terrain. And anything to speed up reserve movement is pretty awesome to have.
Yes, moving units around from one terrain to another. Every race that has some variation of this, a lot of people really love that type of ability. All right, so we'll move on unless anyone has any other comments there. There are 2 more any alloy spells. This next one is called Knockout. You'll notice it is not castable from reserves because it's an offensive type spell. That's your rule of thumb there. It does cost 5, and for those 5 points of magic, you can target up to 3 health worth of units in any opposing army, so not just at the... So I'm going to pause myself there. So I'm going to ask you, Chuck, there to help me, because opposing, a long time ago under 3.0 was a official game term.
No, it just means any.
So, all right, so just any. Okay. So this is Cliff remembering too many versions of the rules, which if you ever play against me, you got to watch for me and say, no, Cliff, that was a 2.0 rule. You can't do that anymore. All right, so any opposing, so any enemy unit, the targets are knocked out. They cannot be rolled until the beginning of your next turn unless they're the target of an individual targeting effect, which forces them to. So you cannot knock them out and then just lightning strike them for free. They'd still get to save against that. If the knocked out units leave the terrain through any means, they're no longer knocked out. And so that would be any type of effect or SAI, or even just simple retreating them from a terrain back to reserves. So, and then we'll move on. The last one, which is, again, I personally, I love this ability. This is their big spell, the 7-point spell. Dracolems, they do not have a summon dragon spell of themselves, so this is kind of their equivalent. You target a unit in an opponent's army. In this case, it is at the same terrain. That unit must make a save roll. If it does not generate a save, it's killed. But whether it saves or not, the target's owner, so this is the opponent in this case, must target another unit in the same army to be saved or be killed. So the plasma, or if you think of it as a, I would say lightning, but it's not lightning strike, but it can move from unit to unit until one of them manages to save. And because of this, powerful ability, an army cannot be targeted by this more than once per magic action, which is a typical limiting type phrase that some of the more powerful and damaging spells have. So as you look at this, it might help to think of this. It's sort of a combination of a plague and a lightning strike, where you have a chance to kill a unit, and then it moves on and has the potential to move throughout that entire army, or it may, die and stop with only a single, or in this case, possibly no damage at all.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It's like casting a lightning strike that has a plague effect tied to it. Limited to once per action and at the same terrain, but wow, is that an awesome spell.
All right. Andrew, Chuck, any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on to the alloy-specific spells.
Yeah, and I want to just reiterate what Cliff alluded to. They cannot summon dragons. There are no dragons that have the alloy colors. And no, we're not planning on changing that.
Okay, that was gonna be my question. Were you planning on revealing at some point a bronze dragon, worm, and drake?
And the answer to that is no, and there are good reasons that we won't go into on this broadcast.
All right. So we'll go on. Alloy-specific spells. So, of course, this is the equivalent of a racial spell for another race. So the first one is the bronze. So again, following the theme of having to do with magic for the bronze alloy. Anti-magic surge. So not castable from reserves. 5 points. Target any terrain. Subtract 4 magic results from all army rolls at that terrain until the beginning of your next turn. So kind of similar to a Oh, not an ash storm. What's the other spell?
Drain.
Yeah, drain will work. So I'll just, rather than reiterate myself, 5 for 4 is basically what it comes down to, specifically for magic results. We'll go on. Silver, following the theme of silver having to do with items. This is Explode Item. Some of those from way, way back may remember dwarves used to have a similar ability that was taken away from them, but silver, all of these alloy-specific spells cost 5. So for this one's for 5 points. It is 1 point of items, and it says see table. It's the same table that was used for the silver ability. So smalls are 1 point, mediums are 2 points, etc., all the way up to the relics and medallions as 5 points. And this is a case there is no save possible. So it is an expensive spell, but it is a great way to target a specific item. Or if you can get enough magic, if someone gets some of the new elemental relic that's coming out as part of the Kickstarter, if that just seems to be the lynch key to their army, it would give you a way to specifically target and get rid of that item. Maybe make their strategy fall apart.
However, you'd have to generate
A lot.
25 points of silver alloy magic.
That's definitely a lot of magic, but yeah, it's like a finger of death for items, and there's no other way to get rid of items other than wiping out huge chunks of the army. So if they've got that 1 or 2 items that's really messing you up, this is a nice spell to have in your back pocket. But that is a lot of silver Dracolem to have to try and explode those big items.
All right, so the last one, of course, is gold. And so this one is called Escape Portal. Again, along the theme of gates. Again, 5 points. Target an army until the beginning of your next turn. Units in that army that are killed by army targeting effects, including missile and melee damage, should make another save roll before being moved to the DUA. Armies that generate saves are moved instead to reserves, and armies that do not may be exchanged for a smaller health unit from your DUA. And then if no save roll was possible when they were killed, it does nothing. So a way that I like to think of this ability is that it's a combination of the open grave spell, and if they fail, it's kind of like the step damage that the undead have.
I was going to say kind of the same thing, but it also reminds me of accelerated growth from the tree folk, although the step damage from undead is a better example because it's much more like that. But yeah, it's a way to protect your army, and if they do die, they just get a little bit smaller. They don't completely die.
All right. Well, that was the last, actually, Dracolem specific rule that we've got for right now. As we test and someday reveal the rest of this race, there may be some new SAIs introduced, but that will be for the future once they are balanced and tested. I just had a final slide here, a couple final thoughts. Some of these we've actually already spoiled a little bit. Obviously the rules support smaller than just a 4 health unit. At the very beginning we said, yes, there will someday be other units. This is the intention, that this is a promo. So while someday in the future you may be able to get a Draco-Champion as part of a full race, it will still remain unique and collectible, different in some way from this die that is coming as a promo version with the book. And of course we had references to the gnomes. Are they a race? We'll see. They've always been, they originally started as an April Fool's joke.
And we actually did a test mold where we tried to do gnomes which actually have 3 colors. Let's just say that with our current the current technology, it does not work. You cannot discern the three colors. So we kind of gave it up.
Yes, and that's one of those. I actually do. I was one of the tournaments at Gen Con that I won. I actually did get one of those test shot dice. So if anyone ever wants to see what that looks like in person, why tricolor races, unfortunately, are not a thing right now. I'll bring that die. Remind me to bring it. You can see what a green, gold, blue die would look like, and it's just awful. All right, well, Andrew, Travis, this is the end of my slides. Any last questions or last comments to share? I know that people have been commenting on Facebook, and we'll go through those later.
I have a couple of comments, or more so thoughts and questions. One of them, I know, one of the questions I have was actually iterated in the comments, and that goes to a lot of the racial abilities and how in 4.0 a lot of the racial abilities were kind of reworked to tie into terrain and everything. Are these new racial abilities for this race independent of terrain?
And yes, they would definitely are, because these dice are made up of alloys, and alloys are not part of any of the terrains. The terrains are only made up of elemental colors.
Some of my last thoughts are just I'm really excited to see this play out. I'm really excited to try this new race out and see how it plays. Only thing I might ask is, we've got the bronze, silver, and gold. Where's the ultra metallum, Dracolem?
Yes. Great question. And on that note, we ran out of time. It is 8 o'clock. Yes. Great question. You never know what might come in the future. At this time, that's not a planned part of the race.
And my last comment is, I think this was also asked at one point when we were talking about the new race. You mentioned that it is not just a reskin. If and when we can expect new 1 point, 2 point, 3 point dice, they're just not going to be reskins of
the Dragonkin.
The Dragonkin, yeah.
Correct.
They're going to have new icons and everything,
and yes. So
Yeah,
those icons, they may be similar to the Dragonkin. Well, honestly, the artwork for that has not been worked out yet. But even if they were, going to be very similar, there are only 3 types of Dragonkin, and they do not have a magic or a missile icon. So at the absolute minimum, those would have to be introduced. But I suspect that the icons for this race will likely vary in subtle ways.
Okay.
And I know I'm messing up my thing here. We actually did have someone get a picture for me of the two, the gold. So I'm just trying to, let me save that, and I will pull it up real quick and throw it on the stream as closing notes.
While you're pulling that up, I'm going to ask William's question from chat because it's a good one. One of the earlier charts states that these are Dragonkin Golem, but it was verbally stated that these are not Dragonkin. Can you clarify?
Let me flip back and find that. It would have probably been early on. Oh, there it is. No, that's Dracolem. Oh, yeah, so it was at the very beginning. That's just it's a flavor text. Here it is. Dragonkin Golems, yes. We're going to blame that. Chuck, unless you can know of some reason there. Is that just a typo?
I believe that is a typo.
All right.
Let me pull up our rules as such. I don't believe that term exists.
All right, and let me pull this over into the stream, my super professional viewing here. If I zoom in a little bit to get that as big as I can. So this is the example, what the gold Dracolem looks like compared to one of the existing gold Dragonkins. So there is definitely a subtle color variation there.
I'm not seeing the picture myself. I don't know if you guys
No,
are.
it's actually, it should be going over the live stream. There's about a 30-second delay.
Oh yeah, it's in the live stream. You're right.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not showing up in our little Discord stream.
So is that the left or the right?
So the one on the left is the old, so that would be the
Okay,
gold.
that's the old one.
So that's the elemental yellow on the left, and the metallic gold is on the right. So it's a sort of a darker color.
And the picture really doesn't show it too well, but those swirls have a very metallic sheen to them.
Yes, I was just going to add, in person, the difference is a lot clearer than it is in the picture. In the picture, they look much closer than they do in person.
Yes. So while the gold will not be released, it'll be a promo with a future book. We can start carrying these around to conventions if we ever start holding them again. Right now the next one on the books would be if Unplugged happens in December, but we have not heard either way on that, unfortunately, with Gen Con and Origins both being canceled. It may be a little bit before anyone else gets to see these in person, but stop by a convention and we'll at least have them in glass so that you can see what they look like. All right, well, if that's everything, we will go ahead and end the stream for today. We'll get these rules posted for people who were not able to watch the live stream. And I'm sure there will be lots of questions as people think about and consume these rules. All right, everyone say goodbye.
Have a good one.
Goodbye. Thanks for watching.
Yeah.
And thanks for playing.
Goodbye.
Yeah.